and we are going to be breaking down the upcoming snow event system, whatever you want to call it, this weekend for the Mid Atlantic and Northeast. Uh, Timing with the system, if you're curious, is Sunday. And yes, we do have accumulating snow to track, and even maybe some surprises to come with this system. I don't think there's a I don't think there is, a full grasp quite yet on some of the nuances that could be developing as we're starting to hone in here on some of the specifics. So, we're gonna kind of dive in here on kind of what's expected to take place. So, without further ado, let's dive in here. So, I'll open up some chats here. Make sure I decided to add some background music, so turn this down just a little. Okay. And then let me copy the link and I'll post, because I find that some of you do not know when I post the link. So let me open up chat. Chase Weather, how we doing? Bermani, how we doing as well? Bermani, Italian. Maybe not. Okay. We are live. Kevin, how we doing? Yeah, you could be could be sneaky. Keep an eye here. I'm telling you, coastal enhancement. We'll talk about some coastal enhancement for Eastern New England as well. We'll dive into that. I-95 special loading. I guess we'll call it you want to call it like a Walmart version of the I-95 special. I guess we can call it. Let's open up the X chat here. Joe Weather, welcome. You were hoping for some solid accumulating snow on Long Island. I think you got a shot there, my man. Celtics Supreme. How's Boston looking for Sunday? Snowy. I wouldn't call it a major snowstorm by any means, but snowy on Sunday. We're gonna have snow games too. We're gonna have some snow games, so keep an eye on that. Still playing. It still says it's playing. So we'll get going here in a second. Let me pull up. Let me pull up. I said I was going to do afternoon. It was evening, whatever. My daily check-in with observations with the storm, how things are progressing. So basically, I go in, I dive in, I take a look at things, I then start pulling up past research on a related specific events, specifics of the event, go dive into, use my own eyes to see how things are progressing as well, go into some of the analogs. I do a deep dive kind of into the observations, and I'll let you know what I'm looking at, what I come back with in terms of how I'm seeing things progress, etc. I'll have this ready to go as well. I'm hoping for some decent snow in the New Haven area. Well, you're gonna get some accumulating snow, I think, with this system. So, I think you're in luck. as we said, I've been confident. I've been semi-confident for a couple days now that there's going to be some sort of snow event to storm. Seems like we slim the potential of us not getting anything, and we also slim the potential of us getting a higher impact event. So we've kind of stuck towards that floor and been kind of discussing. Remember in a stream for the last storm, I said I was manifesting a nor'easter for the Bills-Pats game. I'll take this, I guess. Yeah, he'll take it. And again, guys, these events can get overlooked, but they're critical for the seasonal. We talked about it last night at the end. I mean, we friggin' pulled up the calculator for like 15 minutes, just diving into how important converting these events are. So you got to keep that in mind, that these are the events if you want to end up having, like, at least just even a close to average winter in terms of totals. Guys, these are the events that you got to have. So I know everybody always wants that massive one, which is fine. For me, I almost appreciate these just as much. Well, I if not more, because I know these ones can be fun. They're important. They're not high stakes either, so there's not a ton of pressure always on these to do something crazy when we're talking about the margins. And they're also, we'll talk about the specifics, that some of these can overachieve and locally, even though the general idea, I think, will be relatively the same. But let's kind of dive into it. Let's do it. Well, if I don't need my, well, I guess. Why not here? Oh, live on X, #1. Check it out. We are live on YouTube as well. If you are on X viewing it and you enjoy the YouTube, I put the link on the quote tweets for this as well, if you do enjoy that experience a little bit better as well. But here's kind of what I've been breaking down. So again, I think let's go over it. This is a good general idea. I think confidence is continuing to slowly increase. Not that it was super low before. I've told you, been for a couple days now. I said I think there's a good shot that we're getting accumulating snow here. It's looking likely. It's looking likely here. So in that, but now we're kind of refining some of the details. So we were kind of seeing, could we get a storm? Is it going to be more of beginning frontal stages? It looks like we're going to be, we're kind of going to be. So how you define it does not take away though from the storm totals. Let's say if you're in a snowstorm, but let's say you get a front end thump, it could be the same totals as this. So you got to keep that in mind. Snow is snow. It doesn't matter how you get it, you just get it. So you got to take it when you do receive it, when you receive the snowfall. Keep that in mind. Oh, if you're in the YouTube, you don't mind hitting the like. We'll keep mentioning it. I will fiend for that because it does help a lot. Again, newly monetized thanks to you guys. So there's a couple of people that won't like that. I'll stick it to the haters. Actually, I really don't have that many. I try to keep it respectful in here for that reason. So I don't need to gain a cult following against me. But I'm sure there's a few. Can't control that. For forecasting the weather, well, what would you know? Forecasting the weather can get you hated, but I guess there's ways you can do it, but we're not going to go into that. Large scale pattern. So here's kind of, again, same idea is if we slide back, North America, Heights. Ashan, you're my biggest hater. I doubt it. I don't think you can be. It's impossible for you. Well, actually, you are from New York City, but you're also a New England sports fan, so. Again, large ridge here over the Pacific, lots of upper level energy diving in. Now, it is you can see it's a little wide, the ridge. It's not necessarily a complete horizontal. If it were, guys, we'd there's a decent chance we'd be talking about a pretty big snowstorm here, but we're not. Um, so that is the case. Um, oh no, wrong one. Again, but you also notice that again, as you saw in the temperature map, I mean, there's a strong thermal gradient that we have in place. So a baroclinic zone is meaning that boundary setting up here. You can see it on the water vapor that I posted. Big boy, how we doing? Hidden mega, how we doing as well? Um, so again, warmer air here in the southwest. We have high pressure over here in the southwest, and we have this long stretch out area of moisture, upper level energy. You can see kind of flattened out, so to say, but not completely. You can see there is some amplification in this ray, just not completely flat here. Um, and again, once it drops in on the other side, that will be, the key to kind of pinpointing how exactly this plays out. But we do have a strong thermal gradient in place because we have some very strong cold air present, strong, potent, whatever you want to call it, very cold Arctic air, and that's where the system is traveling over. And you'll keep in mind, we do have this system, though, moving over the Midwest and Ohio Valley tonight. Helps kind of push into the confluence here from the very amplified Clipper system that we have now that is kind of turning into a beast of a system up here in the Atlantic Canada, the Canadian Maritimes. And that is what sets the stage here, and that is all coming together here rather nicely, or just to fruition. It's not breaking news here. And then as we note, again, we have the same thing in place, that thermal gradient that we talked about here. Let's take a look. What do we have in place? It's cool. I can kind of have a rundown here, so I don't have to press my mind to think on the fly usually. It's fantastic. Remember, we talked about with systems, they tend to like to follow the gradient. There's your gradient right there, right? You see that from the Gulf Stream here in the North Atlantic, right? Systems like to tend to follow the gradient, the low pressure. So probably some with this, when this system is tracked, kind of lines up with that. I mean, we saw it with last system. We actually had like a 990 just southeast of Nantucket, right around here, just northwest of the benchmark, I believe, or pretty close to it. Just had a strong southerly wind component from the subtropical moisture with it that worked in favor for people just north of along I-90, but not as much in favor of people south and east. Well, I guess south of 90, Pennsylvania did work out. So, but point being, storms like to ride the gradient, and we are rather below average here. So when we do get one of those, as we start approaching here into core of the winter, we are a bit below average here, just north of the Gulf Stream. So some of these winds or southerly wind events that we see to start, at least, if we do get another system after this, and we start eventually winds start shifting from the south to the southeast to the east to the northeast as they move through, that could work in some of our favors here. Now, typically we say, hey, when we have those true sea surface temperatures, that can provide some extra boost, and we do have them. The Gulf and here and up to the Gulf Stream, there's still actually a decent amount of above average temperatures, but just here in this pocket, they are below average. So that's maybe something that could work in our favor. It's really all perspective depending on the event, I guess, but just something to keep in mind as we go into the future here. Bill's going to get slapped. Listen, I'm a Patriots fan, so I would not mind that whatsoever. I'll take any version of a win, though. I'll take 1 point. I'll take 21 points. I do not care on Sunday. Because you win that game, you almost certainly win the division. So I'll take whatever. Hopefully south of DC by an hour sees at least an inch. But I want 21. Oh, good luck. That's not happening. Sorry, hate to break it to you, but it's true. Again, we have to ride the storm raptor gradient, but it does not look like we're going to get early enough amplification. So that's just the reality. Again, we set snow event to storm as closing in here, it seems like some version of a snow event. It doesn't mean you can't see some. I think I want to talk about this. Doesn't mean some areas here cannot see some actual more notable totals than maybe some were expecting. But the general area, it's not. We're not talking about winter storm here. That I think that's the forecast. Some it depends on I guess your definition. If you think 2 to 3 inches could be a winter storm, and you get that, then fantastic. But typically some of those more winter storm totals are more, 4 or 5, 6, 7, 8 inches of snow kind of. So once you start getting to that 4 to 8 range, I think it's more of the winter storm warning snow. Unless you live in the south, then maybe more like a 3 to 5 would certainly qualify. 2 to 4 if you're way south. Um, and again, this the good news is we're not going to be worrying about as mixing though. You saw one of those Euro runs from like 4 days ago or whatever, showing that pretty amplified system. That will not be the case. So you're not going to be worried about probably mix. If I had to guess, we would take some crazy changes and kind of how we're progressing here over the next couple days. For me to want to look at this and say, oh man, there's some mixing potential on the coast. Just don't see that as of right now. I think I-95 along the coast and northwest into the interior looks very solid to stay all snow. And yes, you make a good point that we'll mention cold snow to ratios. Even if you're about 30, 31 at the surface, I'm telling you, you have a large area of the dendritic growth zone. Always good to have a large, deep layered not a shallow, basically want to say a dendritic growth zone, I guess we can call it, as we roll our R's nicely, DGZ, in the dendritic growth zone, it just sounds better, I don't know why, roll the R with it, and that will take place on Sunday, and it'll be cold upper level snow too, and it's only going to get colder as the front continues to get closer in this scenario. So, and again, we have eventually, as we transition here, you'll notice what's setting up here is going to allow a pretty nice dual jet structure. It's just not going to be we just may not time it just right, but we are going to get, but just don't worry about the specifics. But you kind of see as this progresses here, it's a nice jet streak that takes place. You can see there, I mean, there's an area that, look at that jet streak that we do see uh, take place. I mean, 150 to potentially 170 knot jet streak there, which is pretty strong here at 250. And, when you do get this, you typically tend to see in that right entrance region here of the jet streak, you tend to see usually a pretty good area of lift here along this area, as this progresses here, typically within that right entrance region. So keep that in mind there as we progress here. With the system, because what happens is here you have your Arctic air pressing in from the northwest here, but you also have moisture as the trough is starting to get less and less positive, trying to turn towards neutral. You're starting to pull in more and more moisture here into the system to try to help meet eventually towards the jet core here, and start to turn it on its axis. You see that jet streak start to turn. You start to see this. We'll zoom out a little bit more again. You start to see the axis of the trough start to shift a little bit. You can see as we get closer, still positively tilted. You'll notice, still positively tilted. So we'll delay some amplification. If we were neutral right here, man, we'd be talking about a, a pretty nice winter storm right now. Maybe not necessarily anything historic or massive blockbuster, but we'd be talking about a nice winter storm right now, no doubt. And there could still be some potential here. I mean, I look at this 18Z Euro, man, and just you have to know meteorology too. It's more than just looking at the snowfall maps. I mean, I look at this here, and I mean, some of these areas here, I mean, we got some real nice potential here to get some pretty solid snow. And this would extend up probably into some real nice opportunities here. And you still get nice snow into the interior as well. I'm telling you. These areas you live out into here, some of these areas probably not as much into northern New England as much, maybe some into central. I would there'll probably be some when you have a jet streak like this, I imagine, even though it'll be a sharp gradient, some of this, as we start to see the front develop. But within that area, then you'll start to see probably, again, we'll hone in on the specifics here. Some of the specifics could change. Again, if this is a little bit, let's say I'm not taking, let's say this is verbatim example. So I'm kind of doing analysis on this run, but I think this is the general idea, just a general idea. Wherever this could change a little bit, this could change, it could be tilted a little bit more here, a little bit more amplified. This could be slightly more positive, and regardless of that, I still think some of the specifics of the idea change. I honestly think, regardless, if I think we're in a decent spot here, because even if, let's say, models wanted to print out a slightly more progressive idea, I still think you can get some of the same decent results, regardless of how models kind of start to flip themselves. And they'll keep doing that a little bit. I told you guys, probably not until tomorrow night into early Saturday morning will there be a better consensus on this. But that's that general idea. You can see that jet streak developing there, and you can see the ascent of the south here as we're starting to pull in moisture here into this system. Again, the earlier we tap into this, the more moisture, the more QPF, the more snow totals you have to work with this. The later this gets brought here into the jet core, at least attempting to try to get there, well, the less overall as a total your ceiling gets limited with this system, no doubt. But I still think, regardless, if we want to talk, I think a floor of this system is a widespread 1 to 3, a widespread. If we're talking about a floor, I think honestly there's going to be potential for some higher totals, and we'll kind of break down some of those more specifics why. That's kind of the general idea. So we're talking about, again, some when we're talking about the jet streak, the timing, these all play a factor. And we also could have, we've brought this up before, a CSI band, which we're not going to get into the specifics. Conditional, symmetrical, what, blah, 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 blah. We can get into that. CSI, basically, it's like a slantwise convection. Oftentimes, when you start to see the banding, and it's not always in massive systems, when that banding gets parallel, when that banding gets parallel with the jet streak, when you see that happen, when we see that Arctic front pushing in from the northwest, when we see that banding get parallel here with that jet streak, oftentimes what you get is an area of enhanced lift within that, and you get some enhanced ratios here. And it's cold air advection pressing too. So from the upper levels too, you're just going to continue to get colder. It's going to be good ratios. So that's something to keep an eye on here, right? Because you notice, take a look at your jet streak, and then let's see what the banding looks like as well. And you can see the orientation of the banding. This is a P-type map, so it's going to be a little bit harder, but you can get the general idea here. And then we overlay it with and take a look, almost parallel. When you get it in these setups, right? Slantwise convection is kind of the term for it, CSI bands. I've done some research into some of these stuff before, and example of again, not the same, it's not the same system, but December 2020 was an example of that, right? It's not an extremely strong low pressure system at all. We had very good baroclinic zone in place, good temperature, strong upper level cold air in place too, and the orientation of the jet streak again kind of lined it up with the banding. And when you get that to happen, you can oftentimes enhance your snow totals a little bit within that area. So there's going to be, I'm telling you, I don't know if it'll be throughout the whole area in terms of from, let's say mid-Atlantic to Northeast. There could be some breakups, some splits in between that, and probably some subsidence on the other side. But I'm telling you, I think there's going to be some locally higher totals, and it will surprise some people, regardless of what the models want to do with the forecast until the day of. Forget this exact depiction. I'm telling you, there will be some. There will be some. It's one of those where models just may not show the snow totals until the event actually happens, and it kind of reminds me of February 14th, 2022. I don't know if there's going to be some 10, 11 inch totals. I mean, what happened in that one was it looked like everybody thought it was, you saw it. I'm seeing the same stuff. There's coating to 1 to 3, and maybe some enhancement on the coast. It was literally in terms of specifically, and it was a general, I think, 1 to 3 inches or something throughout these areas here, or something like that. Um, and you had, again, the trough was a little bit deeper, dug a little bit more, but a positively tilted trough never really actually was able, uh, to pull in enough convection early enough to be able to hit neutral early. Otherwise, probably would have been a bigger all-around snowstorm. But what happened was, again, you kind of timed up just right enough to get enough coastal enhancement here from the system, and you're able to maximize within that jet streak. Enough banding to get going here that you ended up having a small area of locally higher totals here in eastern New England of around 6 to 12 inches, mainly 6 to 11, but it just sound better. About 6 to 10, 6 to 11 inches within that area. Are we going to be talking about that? Maybe not. But I'm just trying to highlight the idea. These ones are sneaky. I'm telling you, they're sneaky. I've seen them before. And I've seen, I'm not seeing this exactly, but variations. Every setup is different. We always mention that. But I've seen variations before. These are sneaky. I'm telling you, there'll be some locally areas more of snow that you weren't expecting. I mean, all of a sudden, you're looking at an area. Why was there 7.5 inches of snow right there? How did that happen? Or I was forecasted 2. All of a sudden, I ended up with 5. How did that? Just little things like that. To keep it. And it won't be. I know I say that, and some of you are going to think, "Oh man, can I be that?" It's not going to be everywhere. I'm telling you, it probably does not end up being the whole area within this forecast here. It probably ends up being a little bit more confined. Some could be very slim. Some of these totals, right now, it probably could end up being something like this. A couple dull areas, and then a little bit more enhancement to off the coast, eastern New England. I've seen that before as well. Models the whole time, they just print the coastal enhancement here, and all of a sudden this band ends up going further. It's just a lot. I see it a lot with the coastal enhancement here, especially cold air advection pressing from the northwest. You still have more upper level dynamics to run through. You end up getting more bands a little bit off more some of these than you were expecting to. It just tends to happen. I know these are some pretty specific details here for 2 to 3 days out now, roughly, but that is the idea here with the system is that there's going to be some intricate things that make this kind of unique here with this system. So you got to keep that in mind as well. Again, timing is key. Listen, if it could be, I mean, like as like a 3-hour difference in the tilt and the trough, depending on, again, we're probably not going to get this thing to get full neutral by the time it gets here. But let's say we swing this a little bit earlier, we get this jet streak, we get this jet core. I mean, let's say we shift this at this time and frame, we're able to get this 30, 40 miles west. That could really increase, some of the banding in some of these areas for a little bit longer. You increase duration of high ratio snow. Notice too, within that, still more of this jet streak that comes together here after that left exit region too kind of moves through. Some of these areas here would have to keep an eye on that, I think, as well across southern, southeastern New England and into Long Island and New York City. I wouldn't be shocked if somewhere it gets caught in the middle. I would not be shocked. I don't know if this is just going to be a straight line of totals. I think a general idea, yes. Yes. But I don't think it's just going to be a straight line. I think it's especially the locally higher totals, they'll be more confined. They will not be widespread. They will be more confined. So keep that in mind here. Again, the earlier that coastal low develops, again, we talked about a lot of those reasons why. The earlier that coastal low does develop, though, so that low pressure gets together, it's a more organized system. You'll have a more organized system early on. Later development of this, and we'll have trouble organizing enough that the light precip, it will still continue. I'm very confident regardless. So that's why I think there's a good, decent floor as a snow event. But in terms of those heavier totals, and we talked about some of that CSI banning potential, that gets a little bit more limited within this. That duration of heavy snowfall totals will get notably more limited with this. So you still get some mood flakes, you'll still get some decent accumulation, make some people happy, um, but the ceiling gets limited. And I got to be careful with looking at some of these soundings, but at first glance, I like the look. I know I know the models will struggle with the specifics, but in terms of the general idea of the column and the size of the DGZ, we're looking pretty solid, and the saturation as well of the DGZ, that plays a factor um, as well. So kind of slide through again. We talk about it. Yeah, these are the kind of setups they do tend to provide. We talked about that general area of maybe 1 to 3, 2 to 5 inches, but then within that there could be some higher achieving. So with some pockets of 4 to 6, 5 to 8, there could be some locally higher pockets. I'm telling you, with these events, they're sneaky. Uh, but at the same time, you can't explicitly forecast some of those higher totals across a widespread area. So keep an eye on that. Subtropical jet. We'll slide to COD. This was, we talked about it last night. These play a factor as well. I don't know if I want this one. Yeah, I want that one. So there's our subtropical jet out there. Let's see. Let me answer. It's 15 to 1 to plus on the table. Yeah, I honestly think a lot of those Kachera maps right now are crap. Because they do like a calculation throughout the column, and it's not sophisticated enough. So some of those Kachera maps, I'm telling you, are kind of underdoing some of these. I'm glad you love the analysis, DJ Slankman. So I'm telling you, the Kachera, they will underrate. This is one of those setups where under, because they'll see like 32 at the surface, and they'll do like its calculation, or 31, 30. You're going to be cold the loft guy. Like your -10 line is going to be very, very south and very deep in the column. I say south. It's going to be deep in the column. And that is gonna allow some sufficient ratios to take place, because it's gonna force your snowfall production zone to be a little bit lower in the column, and you're gonna be well saturated. Now the top of your dendritic growth zone is probably actually not going to be so crazy below the surface either, but probably somewhere, depending on where you live, around 550 to 600 millibars, which is still below average. Yep, Philly's in line here. Clink Games. We're kind of talking about the general ideas of the specifics. I'm not really answering specific town questions quite yet at this moment for the system, but we'll certainly get into it. And again, keep in mind, we're still like 2.5, 3 days out, depending on where exactly you live with this system. Maybe not 3, like 2.5-ish days. So keep that in mind, that some of the specifics of these totals, I'm not going to be able to give you like the best answer quite yet. So but Philly is on line here to see some accumulating snow, absolutely. So yeah, I don't know. Do the Eagles play at home this Sunday? I think one of the New York teams does. I know the Patriots do. Does Baltimore play as well? Do the Commanders? All these teams. Yeah, look, I wonder. You guys tell me. You guys can look at the schedule. I forget. I haven't looked at anything other than I know the Pats and Patriots play this weekend. So you could tell me. Well, I was kind of telling you already. Kachera, it does this dynamic ratio. What it does this, like, it averages out the temperature. It's only the temperature in the column is what it takes. So it sees a temperature in one part of the column, or throughout the column, and it takes like this temperature conversion, and it does ratios from there. That's exactly how it works with the Kachera models. It doesn't account for lift, saturation of the dendritic growth zone, it doesn't account for any of those factors. And when you combine the lift, the saturation, how long the DGZ is throughout that, the exact where exactly the lift is in the dendritic growth zone, it doesn't account for those factors. So that's where kind of Kuchera still lacks in some of those factors. Loving the late night updates. Are you close enough to take the NAM seriously? And yet, um, the minute I take the NAM seriously, you can punch me in the head for free. Uh, if you would like, sorry, I can't incite violence on YouTube. I'm not monetized. I have to be smarter with what I say. No, I'm just kidding. But I always take into account what the NAM is showing. I just don't. I just don't worry too much about the specifics. I mainly care more about the soundings that I get of the general idea of the environment, and that's typically exactly what I use the NAM for. Not really, and even then, I might get the environment a little off. So that's where it gets a little tricky. Yep, you're welcome for explaining. It will be a snowy game. That's a great way to make them even worse than they already have been. Yeah, listen, I've been watching the Eagles this year. They just do not. Something looks off. There's a disconnect. They do not look like they're playing as a team. Side rant. It's been annoying to watch. They've had so many primetime games too, being the Super Bowl team, and those games are ugly. They're awful to watch. I hate watching them too. I'm sorry, Phil. Like I'm not just saying that because I'm not a Philly fan. I'm from Boston. I do not enjoy watching Philly play. I enjoy good football. They have not played a good product of football this year. It's been rough to watch. Rough to watch. So there's my Philly football. NFL football as a whole it's been some tough watches this year, especially quarterback play. So that's why I'm so lucky to have my glorious king Drake May be playing so fantastic this year, and Patriots play fundamental football. But not sure too many care about that those specifics. But let's play here. It sucks, but as a hockey fan, I'm rooting for the Flyers. I'm doing pretty good. Hey, we have right now. New England fans are living it. You got the Patriots, you got the Celtics who lost playing well, you got the Bruins playing well, the Red Sox playoff team as well. Like we New England sports are doing all right now. We're doing all right. Tatum will be coming back for the Celtics, not my dog, but the actual one. So yeah, the interception. Yeah, completely agree on the Eagles. They're ridiculously stupid. Yeah, has not been a fun watch this year. That's why I'm so grateful. I don't listen. Yeah, we're playing with house money as Patriots right now. I don't care what anybody says. I'm just enjoying watching decent football. You don't know how painful those last 2 seasons were. I mean, we haven't been like good for like a little while now, but it's been fantastic this year to watch good football. But here's what we got going on with the subtropical jet here. So here's the tricky thing, right? We have this big dome of high pressure, dry here over dry areas of the country as well. A shocker, dry in the southwest. We've said that before. But with this system, notice with this ridge here. You see how everything's flattened out. You see the same thing with the subtropical jet. So where does that kind of line up? Probably not until here is where we can start pulling in moisture into the system. You can see the flow here. So across the Gulf of Mexico as well, or Gulf. I swear to God, if we have someone in here who's gonna crap on that, I seriously been calling it the Gulf of Mexico for multiple decades. So you get crap off with that stuff here. Like I can't take it. If there's one person, Gulf of America, just stop it. Like, if you want to go, be one of those persons. It's not the program. I don't care about your political affiliations. This is strictly weather. So. But notice, again, we're starting to get to Dmax again. So some of this convection here from the subtropical jet is definitely starting to kick again. And my question is, how much can we just tap in? How much can get pulled northward initially? If this can get even more enhanced than what's even Mahler forecast, and oftentimes it is, as we saw, on some of those Mahler runs from the last storm, if these are able to get pulled in a little bit more, I'm telling you, just a tad. It increases our moisture fetch a little bit. So regardless of what you classify, regardless of what stage of low pressure development we are, this can help enhance a little bit to at least have a little bit more influence, maybe help swing our trough just barely, ever so slightly, if we want to talk about margins. Now, let's say we don't. If we're unable to pull some of this in as soon, then we're going to be able to, we're going to limit a little bit more of our ability. If we just completely slide Again, that doesn't limit our floor. It doesn't decrease our floor, I think, with the system, but you can kind of get the idea of the flow. The flow is to me looks like out here until we really get a lot of this subtropical convection air kind of get pulled in here off the Gulf and across from the Pacific. So that's kind of the idea is, but again, if we're able to just pull a little bit more, that could just a little bit, that could maybe tug in real time and that maybe we see some catch up. That's one thing you could see some catch up on models a little bit. When we're talking the totals we are here and the margins we are, we're such a dynamic 500 millibar Vort profile. I guess we'll take a look back and take a look here. Side note, I feel like we're doing very. I gotta start doing those out, going over the ops tweets more. We're kind of cooking with the analysis here. It's fantastic. Oh, the OZ0 is kind of already loaded now. We'll look at the models after. I really don't care about the specifics of them too much. I want to get back. We'll show GF. But take a look at how dynamic the 500 millibar system is here. You note that, like you see, this is a dynamic. It's very positively tilted, but it is a dynamic 500 millibar Vort signature here. But that could work in our favor. Remember, I'm telling you, when you line up when you line up the banding, when you line up, right, you line up your upper levels, you line up 500 millibar, and you line this up here with the jet streak as well. Take that into account here. And you see, look at the direction we drew. Line it up directly parallel here with your jet streak. That could allow you some ability here. Could allow you some ability to surprise. Just mightily. Especially if it underdoes a little bit. Some of the model underdoes, I should say, some of the strength of our jet core here. And specifically where. But again, if you are able to just get a little bit more tap into the moisture fetch, it could amplify this just a little bit more, help turn the axis of the trough a little bit sooner, and we start playing the domino game with this, and everything kind of gets affected here. There's one where little things can make a more notable difference here. But again, also, let's say if we end up, being so positively tilted, and we do this eventually, then maybe that doesn't matter as much, and a lot of this gets shunted offshore. So keep that in mind as well. It's not just all fun and games for potentially a higher ceiling. Happy to see Southern New England, New York getting in on the action. You'll probably still pick up something from this, to be honest. In Southern Vermont, I would not be surprised. You probably still find a way to pick up something. If you had to put a map out right now, where would you put the 2-inch line? I don't mean for at least 2 inches or exactly 2 inches. I mean, I kind of discussed it already. I think a general floor from DC to Boston of 1 to 3 inches. This is kind of in line here. I think a general floor is what I'm kind of leaning towards right now. As if you want to talk like a real technical floor, like obviously someone could be below that, but the general idea I think right now is at least for that. And we're still over a couple days out, so I don't want to tell you specifically exactly what you're gonna get. But I'm telling you, if you made me do something right now, I'd kind of be leaning more 2 to 5-ish across a general area, and then I would put in some locally enhanced areas. I think there's going to be some higher areas potentially locally within that. If you had to put gun to my head, make the forecast now. If you had to, that's kind of what where I would kind of lean in terms of the overall evolution of things. Just kind of some if you want some real critical thoughts. Again, that could change a little bit though, and it won't be because of the specifics of models. It'll be because of how we start progressing here. Patriots and Drake Mayer must see TV every Sunday. Yes, they are. So again, yeah, kind of just talking about putting it together. We have along that frontal boundary. We're in the beginning stages of beastly cyclogenesis here, guys. I mean, beastly. This is going to be a monster of a system in the Atlantic Canada. Just a little too late. It's a shame how close we're going to be. And this actually is less of honestly a missed connection and it is a it's partially misconnection, and it's more of the fact of the flow here in the Atlantic, actual over the Pacific. We're gonna get our Atlantic ridging. It just there's only so much time it can have in between. You if we drop this trough in a little bit, just a little bit more, I mean, we'd be talking about a good amount. But even then, with this setup, I mean, especially looking at that left exit region there, when you have that kind of jet streak, probably find your way to get something still. And you can see the ascent that then takes place. Look at that. That meets that jet core. I mean, there's multiple areas too, so it's kind of really takes its time eventually. Look at that. So this turns into a beastly system eventually. And then we're not going to discuss after, but I'm telling you, you're getting caught. It's the fool's gold, as our boy Cam Newton said about the Patriots. Fool's gold right now. What you're seeing beyond, and maybe or fool's not fun gold, whatever you want to call it. I don't know. That's kind of just beware of what you're looking at. What you're looking at down the line with models. Hope you get a good surprise out of this one, Joe. Always hoping. Good, Joe. You got a supporter in Zach. Well, Zach's very positive. He's not like biased. But Zach's a good person. Next, I need Utah to get some snow. Ski mountains in Vermont. Got more. Those guys now. I kind of feel bad. Yeah, I've heard about that actually. Utah's in a snow deficit. But that's kind of the pattern, though. We talked about it. Active northerly flow. So we get systems that either go. I said we get some stuff that we're in a pattern right now where stuff can slide, or stuff can drive north. First one slides, just like we talked about a couple days ago. Next one slides north. Hey, no, don't disrespect Cam. Cam, you got to look at the context of that statement. I will say, Cam is a legend. Cam's a legend. Don't disrespect Cam like that. And remember, MVP. It's not that serious, trust me. Was just looking at the February 22 storm, and man, it does look similar. I have zero recollection of that storm, probably because it was a few weeks after the blizzard. Yes. Now, again, trough was a little bit deeper. It was a little bit deeper. It was also a little bit, skinnier, the trough as well. But there also was not the same confluence on that system. This one has a little bit more of a confluence. I would say this is overall maybe a little bit more juiced as an upper level energy profile, but the depth of the trough is not incredible. But it does tap into that. You just take a look here. It does tap into that subtropical moisture here. You just see a lot of it out ahead, just gets pushed so much. So again, if we're able just to pull a little bit more, maybe we could get a little bit more out of this. It's not breaking news meteorology, but again, if we don't, we still actually have a somewhat decent floor. So it's not really putting the rose-colored glasses on. So if that were the case, I would be trying to tell you guys, hey man, keep an eye on this. We're getting a winter storm automatically, and it's just not the case. Again, we have really good cold air in place, so we'll have a nice baroclinic zone, and ideally too, or I don't mean ideally as hopefully, I mean ideally as typically, you have such a tight thermal gradient taking place, typically that allows some mid-level lift to take place as well when you have that thermal gradient in place, and then you combined the slantwise convection along the jet streak. Ideally somewhere along that area there's going to be some enhanced areas. I'm telling you guys, CSI bands, they can do some fun stuff, and especially once you add in the coastal enhancement. I know the general idea, it seems minimal. I'm telling you though, there's gonna be, and I think the ceiling with this system is really actually going to be in eastern New England, to be honest. And I'm really getting some February 2022 flashbacks. I'm getting some. I don't know if it's going to be to that extent, but I'm getting some. But I do also think that along that there could be somewhere You could have to keep an eye somewhere. It might be here, it might be New York City, somewhere. You guys can't see maybe that tight, but could be near DC, Baltimore. It could be along Philly to New York City. I don't know. There's somewhere along. It could be maybe it's the whole line. I could be wrong, but there's going to be probably some locally enhanced totals along that area too. Just a little bit of enhanced area of lift probably with solid ratios. So you'll probably get some period of heavier snowfall totals for at least a period um, along here. Probably somewhere within this region as well. But again, I think this is a little bit different here where you have some coastal enhancement at play. The strongest part of the jet streak coming through here. So maybe models don't show us what you'll see some models showing some of those bigger totals right now here. I'm telling you, with this kind of setup, this is a place where Eastern New England can cook a little bit, so to say. Video mentioned Devontae Smith for RJ Harvey based on some snow in the Philly during that 1 p.m. game. Hey, I'll say it depends on the matchup, but if it's PPR, man, RJ Harvey's not a bad play right there. You know he's going to get some catches in that offense. They're going to dump it off. What else? Yep, Confluence. Again, that's another thing to watch here. So if you want to watch models closely, that's fine. I don't think you're going to learn all that much in terms of the end specifics of the deal. But the Confluence too, you want to watch here when you're watching model runs. You can kind of every time they come out, if you want to watch, you can kind of pinpoint it already. This is kind of your Confluence line setting up here. You have the initial Confluence from this back here. This is your second part of the Confluence. The further north this is, the quicker the angle of the trough will tilt. So the more more amplified the system earlier. The more the Confluence presses on this angle, the harder it is going to be for the storm to kind of flip around. This is what it's doing here. This is where the action is happening. This is where your upper level low is. We have this ingested little mini PV lobe in here as well. This PV assisted lobe is kind of what I'm calling it. And then so this is basically trying to swing around. So you can see the problems we have here with trying to get a bigger storm to happen. With this kind of orientation, it's just very tricky overall to do that. But snow is snow at the end of the day. So some of you really don't care about the specifics of the orientation of the trough and more about how much snow is my friggin' backyard going to get. So you got to keep that in mind. But yeah, we can look at some of those latest runs. Given I got no mentions of them, I'm guessing there was no massive surprises, so to say, on a lot of these runs. But let's see here. 18Z. It doesn't look as. I mean, it's pretty similar, but it's a little bit more. Suppressed. On this Confluence is pressing a little bit more, I do believe. But overall, it doesn't change the orientation of this. Again, that's minor. See what I mean? When you're looking at this, it's minor. But it is different, slightly different. It's really minor in the grand scheme. So I don't know what these P-type maps end up showing. And they can kind of do their thing. Really, these things are not going to matter that much. Yeah, they're not. These things are kind of just keep doing what they're doing. Part of me is like, it's kind of a shame with this orientation here. You are a little bit deeper with your trough. A little bit deeper, but deeper with the trough and not more amplified does not necessarily help significantly. Preset maybe slightly amped here, very little difference. Yeah, it's just run to run. I guess we can look at the QPF. I'd be curious, a little bit curious, not all that, to see what the ensembles uh, look like. Let's take a look. Again, it's not going to be an event where you need a ton of QPF here. Yeah, so slightly more with the confluence, but yeah, there is more precipitation, I guess, within this area. So, but if you want to model, if you want to follow the specifics of that stuff, then it's just going to drive you crazy. And I'm telling you, that's what a lot of people do, though. They just look at the specifics and they until they're blue in the face of these P-type maps, and it doesn't do you really any good. PPR with an army like him, the snow was my thought. Can't trust those Philly receivers. I don't know. They usually get some to produce there. Yeah, those Philly receivers. So I got a bye week this week though, because I went 12-2 in my league, so successful. Let's see. Same thing. A little bit deeper with the trough, PV lobe a little bit more in there, but nothing. So that does help a little bit, but confluence was not necessarily any better on this run. Or was it? It's a little bit more consolidated. It's really the thing I take away. But initially, confluence not as beneficial if we're doing run analysis here. Ideally, if you want to follow models, again, the end result is going to be the end result. Snowfall is going to be what it is, but the more what you want to follow, the more this PV lobe and the back edge here, the more these two can get closer together earlier on, and the more this confluence lifts, especially it can be really anywhere along this area, as long as this part doesn't overcompensate if this lifts up. Vice versa. If this lifts up more and this lifts down a lot. Actually, that is not vice versa. That can still be good. But so if you lift this up a good amount and this down a little bit, then that's actually not terrible. And actually could be pretty decent. But if you lift this down a good amount and this up more, that's not necessarily beneficial. That could just be too late with what you do. So you can see how those two kind of play together. But general idea, if you lift confluence up more, and this little PV lobe, and this guy here, get a little bit more connected earlier on, this is able to sink. The more this is able to sink back, the more your Atlantic ridging increases as well in between the stream separation. So the more these height lines build, which you'll probably start to see if you haven't already. Models underestimate that a little bit. The more you do see that, the more significant those snowfall runs or snowfall totals you'll see on models. Yeah, I don't know if I call a nickname for them. I don't need to make more people angry here. I think Monmouth County, New Jersey, you can get 3 to 5 inches. Can? Yes. Well, I don't know. I wouldn't start with the 3. I would start more with a 2, to be honest. So I guess technically, but I would change the specifics. So yeah, so that's the thing. A little bit less Atlantic ridging on this run, which I don't personally want to see. And the P-type map is it is what it is. These things will be get blotchy. They'll be messy. P-type maps with the Euro AI are never really that perfect. I've found. You see this, like this is just it's just it has it really does have trouble a little bit, especially along boundaries. It really does. We'll have trouble with the specifics here. I wonder what it looks like on here. One thing we could have here, remember where that boundary is. That could work for us here if it's showing a low pressure system, that southeast. If we wanted to form, again, that boundary is going to want to form here. That baroclinic zone is going to want to form closer. I don't know. Is it a quick moving moisture star of storm? But I feel like a town or two can. Yeah, we kind of talked about that already. That some that some places will kind of surprise here. We talked about it. There's going to be some locally higher totals. I'm very confident in that, which we'll see how it ends up playing out. But yeah, so I guess possibly within this gradient, we'll see. Does it want to ride more along this gradient? That's a little far out, to be honest, or probably more this gradient within here, just around the benchmark. That's probably where this thing is going to want to set up here, this storm's low. So I don't think that will necessarily hurt us here. I don't know what this probably is, almost the same, so blotchy. Long range Euro AI has a weird look to it. Oh no, I'm telling you guys, be careful with these long range model runs right now. What's wrong with this? What happened? Something happened with this. I don't like it. Whatever. I feel like something changed here. I don't like it. Did I zoom in more? There we go. I think I like that better. Oh, you know what it is? You get a little bit of a PV stretch here. Just a little bit. See that? If you had to pick an area for New Jersey for the jackpot, where do you think it would be? I honestly don't know if New Jersey will be the jackpot, to be honest. And again, that's a little tough. You know, 2.5 days, about two, still about 2.5 days out here. But you know, that's a little tricky to say exactly where in New Jersey right now. I kind of just have, you might have missed it earlier. I kind of talked about this. So you can kind of rewind it if you want as well. But I think I think it might be here and here, but especially here is where I think those jackpot is where. And again, it doesn't mean it could be. It could end up being along the front here. It could just be in those whole area. It could be. But typically, It's a little bit more complicated than that, and it doesn't mean places in between don't get it still. It doesn't. It's just like locally higher, or maybe ends up being a little bit further north. Maybe it ends up being a little bit more here and here. Regardless, I like Eastern New England, and I do actually think that's going to be pretty decent here. And but there is going to be some opportunity for some plowable snowfall in some of these areas. There is. So hopefully that gives you a little bit more perspective. Upper air, actually no, upper air temperature. Ooh. There's your little bit, and even then, we'll see. We'll see about that. We'll see about that, but that'd be brief. So you can take all the 500 millibar height line posts you want. Look what you do right after, and then look what you do right after. So yeah. So let's say in theory, maybe some of the more the country does warm up. The area we forecast though is mainly here. That's what we care about. And I have more people here. I have some people here, or I guess I have people all up and down the East Coast and some into the Midwest as well. But that's the general idea. But look what you keep doing with the cold. Man, you create a nice thermal gradient there at the end. You probably get something fun. And look at that. You get a nice little fantasy Christmas snowstorm there on the Euro AI. So again, until I want to see, you're very welcome, Justin. Listen. I still have my theory that there are going to be some opportunities for some storms still. Now, again, I didn't tell you there are going to be historic East Coast snowstorms or anything like this, but some of those more notable events, I think. We talk about this. You've seen content. Anybody that follows content, your repetition until you hit, kind of, right? This what we talk about. We still have the cold air on tap, guys. It's not people. I know we're thrown around, but you got to remember locally where we live, and some people where they talk about. So you got to know this whole freaking area of the country can be warm. If we're not, then we're not. I don't know how much more simpler to put that there. Let's say, like I don't know how to put that. How any more simpler. So I'll account for some of the long range models. I will, and I'll say, but I will say is, New England does have a little bit more margin for error here. With this pattern or this coming up in the mid-month. But I'm not going to dismiss even areas into the I-95 Northeast and even into the Mid-Atlantic. I'm not going to dismiss those areas, and even into the interior Mid-Atlantic as well. I am not going to say that we're shutting off the hose here for these areas. I'm just not. There's not really much of a reason to really just look at models and be like, oh man. Telling you, you get obsessed as soon as you see something you don't like or you really like. A lot of people start latching on to a lot of those ensembles deep in, and they just don't matter as much. And also, guys, we kind of want that. We need some of these. We do not just want to. Again, listen. I like having an active North Stream here, but what I don't like is having such a fast flow over the Atlantic as well here. Remember, we did get some Atlantic ridging to build in. So again, we're not going to miss this event here. So you can thank a little bit of Atlantic ridging for finally kicking in to help at least get something. But we combine that with kind of a flat Pacific ridge, however, still amplified. And we did kind of cost ourselves an opportunity to get a bigger ceiling event. But it's also December, 12th right now? And we're talking about we're talking about an accumulating snowfall event here. We're talking about an early season snowfall event here for these areas. Further south. So take it, take it, take it and run with it. If you get 2.5 inches from this system, just take it and run with it. It's like blackjack. Let's say you came in with 20 bucks. Right? All of a sudden you lost maybe your first couple hands. And then hey, you only six, let's say you're only 7 to 8 hands in, and now all of a sudden you worked up a $5 profit, let's say, and you came in with 20. Let's just walk out with that profit, guys. Let's not get greedy here and say, oh man, I wish we would have. Sometimes that's the best thing you can do, is walk away from the table, or just walk away and take what you get. And that might be the case here. And there's going to be, I'm telling you, we talked about it, there's still going to be some surprises with this event. There's still going to be some surprises. And it won't gain as much media traction. It won't get all the fun stuff, but there is. There's still gonna be some surprises to this. So keep that in mind. And even though this, well, I guess we're gonna talk about this a little bit more. I do like pulling this in tighter. We want to address those P-type maps. That's never a bad thing. Really think the Southeast Ridge is going to help us more than hurt us in New England. Yeah, I don't know if this is developing a full-on Southeast Ridge here, but yeah, you gotta keep in mind here of like. So I'm not here to tell you again. Nowhere in this wording have I said that. Oh man, we're gonna get a big time snowstorm. Definitely gonna happen. I just listen. The initial thinking was. There's typically, once that jet retracts, that is a little bit of a shakeup in the pattern. The specific jet retracting a little bit creates a little bit of shift in the pattern. And for our forecasting area, that creates more of an idea. Or that creates a little bit more, that opens up the opportunity in the door a little bit for some of those more maybe potential notable snowfalls that we look for. So keep that in mind. So we're instead of talking about some of these more low ceiling events, and then maybe you can get lucky with something big. It can allow you to I don't know. Just it's never like these maps. Just people don't know how to read these. I'm telling you, they don't. They do not how to read these. People see this, and then they're gonna live here as well. You live here in this map when you see this. Yes, you are going to be above average temperatures. What you don't realize is you have deep Arctic air to the north here, and you're going to have a strong cold air source just to the north. Take a look. See, let's look at the map now. Whoa, look at that. So yes, these areas here end up being a lot warmer on this specific run. But then you look to the north here, and sure enough, you have a good source of cold air. Not only good source of cold air, it's not just staying to the north. So yes, maybe is there a chance maybe one or two of these days you end up, maybe you get a system or you get a day where you're just maybe your temps, you're going to be maybe a little bit above average, let's say. Then what we're going to do, put that breaking news, December is way above average. That's not how it works. That's not how it works when we're forecasting weeks out in advance. So just keep that in mind here, that when we have a consistent north stream flow here from the south, and now we're going to open up this opportunity here for this influx of subtropical air here from potentially either from the Pacific, from the Gulf, etc., whatever, Do we get more of a southeast ridge setup here? Um, well, let's see, whatever. Or if we dip cold air more into the central U.S., it may not be a bad thing. And again, you got to keep this in mind here. I don't forecast. Uh, to tell you guys, oh, all right, here's how things are looking. This is what the models look like, and expect this for down this time. And yep, that's my long range forecast. For me, I'm always looking at it as how can I get when's the next chance for snow? And don't get that twisted. When's the next chance for snow or cold or whatever does not mean I put on the rose-colored glasses and go, oh, this is definitely, we're definitely, this is all of this so cold and snowy here, guys. Whoa, yeah, dude, so cold and snowy. No, that's just not how I operate. I'm obsessed with putting the puzzle pieces together, finding the truth. I love the snow. I will never deny it on this channel. I love cold and snow. I love seeing, guys. I had the 2 inches of snow, and I had the snowpack. It lasted. I still have pieces even after that rain yesterday. I still have some sleet snow chunks out there, smaller, but I had it for like 8 days after. I enjoy that. I enjoy seeing that snowpack. I enjoy that during the winter. I enjoy getting a nice snowstorm. I don't deny that. But I'm also keen enough to look at if we're not getting something, I can't just forecast stuff. But at the same time, when there's uncertainty and there's just model noise and people want to dive into that as if it's the forecast, when it's not the forecast. The Euro run 4 days ago showed an interior significant snowstorm. And what was that? It was like 6 days out. It was one run. And obviously we knew it wasn't to be worried about too much. But people can look at that and just they get a certain idea if that's exactly how it's going to be. And it's just not necessarily how it works out. The pattern leaves clue. Observations and what the pattern is doing leaves clues. You have to look at past research, past analogs, case studies. You have to keep in mind, or in other words, just a knowledge. If you're not looking to dive into that stuff, you have to have knowledge on some of the past history with setups and how things play out. You have to keep that in mind. You have to keep that in mind when we're forecasting. So yeah, so that's just kind of a general. You have to pick up on some of those things that models are gonna not pick up on. Even when you get variations and changes in the pattern, like we said, I think there's gonna be a variation to this, and we'll see kind of the specifics how it plays out. In theory, there's some opportunities. I'm not gonna, just for the sake of the forecast I made, I'm not gonna completely shy away from it. I don't see a reason to at this point, and we'll kind of see things how play out. But I kind of highlighted is once we get into that December, I think around 17th to really until the end of the month, at 17th to 27th or something like that, I highlighted is that's maybe where you could get some opportunities for maybe some double-digit systems in theory, something like that. Those maybe some more 6 to 12, 8 to 12 events at least, or I can't really say there's going to be some massive big East Coast snowstorm, but maybe there is. You link one with the right pattern or with the right setup. Eventually, sometimes, right, a broken clock is right twice a day. Maybe not the perfect analogy, but you get what I'm trying to say. So keep that in mind when you're looking at the long range pattern here. All right, Weather Bell, what are you going to try to do with the ensembles tonight? Actually, let's see if we had any fun fantasies in the Euro. Oh, it's cold, man, over Canada. And then keep in mind too, guys, the snowpack we've been building too. Again, people don't want to see people see red over their house on 500 millimeter map. Assume it's going to be 7 degrees. Not even red, yellow. People see yellow and they think that. But my goal is to try to. Again, we always want to see when's the best chance for snow, but really too, I want to try to see how accurately I can predict everything. And some people, some select few that will scoff at that, but I really can't control their thoughts. That's really up to them. I just try to do what I can. All right, something loading out. It gets Euro and Euro AI ensembles. They keep getting stuck, and I don't know why. Nora Jones, you know. Give me 500 for it. Give me it. Do it. Emperor Palpatine. Do it. I've not watched Star Wars stuff in a while. Actually, I know. Well, I'm not a fan of how Star Wars kind of stuff has evolved here in the Disney Plus era, but I still watch. I just still like it. I still like the shows, but I don't like how it's the lore has played out. And there's probably people, like, oh boy, here we go. We're in that point in the stream where you're talking about Star Wars. Yeah, where the mind went. Deal with it. But yeah, I do love Star Wars. So, side note, that's where that nerd part comes in. This really doesn't look all that different, to be honest. Not sure you're gonna get any clues out of this. Your AI. Let's see, but you're stuck. Oh, you're loaded out a little bit. There you go. Air. So, hey, there we go. I'm gonna skip. It's really not all that different. Which I guess isn't the worst thing. Let's see here. Okay. Okay. I like that. I guess not that different, but you can see the Atlantic ridging. If that's something you can look at on each run and kind of get an idea, is a deeper trough can be okay. It's not necessary. But Atlantic ridging, for me, that's the biggest thing we have going in our favor for model biases. If you are obsessed with looking in depth, I mean, I'm obsessed with looking at them too. I'm always looking at them, but just the weight hold on them, guys. That's really it. That's really what I want to talk about. The weight. Just make sure you be careful of that. That you hold on these. So just keep that in mind. Oh, this is not even out yet. Not even out yet. But we'll see. We'll see. So I don't love just going straight to that, but I will. Okay. 10-to-1 ensemble maps are not always perfect, but okay. Interesting. That 500 millibar I liked better, but on the snow map, then you'll see it's oh, just like that. Probably means there was one run that was maybe skewing it in the AT&Z a little bit. So it's hard. But here's what I'm talking about. Then you start looking at these things and you can go, oh man, why isn't it showing? Why is it showing that less? Look at that. That line 2.5 days out on this model ensemble right here, it moved 15 miles south. That is terrible. That's just is what it is. That's how you view it. That's really it. That's really why I harp on so much. Some find it repetitive. The reason it's repetitive is because I see it repetitively. Then I wouldn't have to talk about it as much and address concerns with that. Atmosphere does not lie. Models will. So, but when then within that, we're not going to get panels quite yet, unfortunately. But then within that, when you see snowfall maps too, then you got to ask yourself, why do certain things show what it show? Was there a big variation in runs? What did it show? And then you'll see some. They'll be like, oh, some are way offshore, others a little bit further inland, and gives you there's a spread. You can see there's a cluster of ones that keep it just offshore, like everything, and then there's another cluster of ones that you can see that provide actually some pretty decent stuff in terms of whatever that means. But yeah, and this isn't fully finished out yet. And you can see there's some ones just close. And then you have one fun one. Oh, it actually does a pretty good job highlighting a bunch of scenarios, but there is still a bit of spread, I will say. It's still a good amount of spread on the specifics of what exactly it wants to do. If we're getting really intricate in terms of some of the population density, that's kind of what I mean. The general idea, it's not crazy spread, but in terms of the specifics, yeah, there's still a good amount of spread here on some of these ensemble runs. Which then I guess we can look at these ones and say, what happened here? And there you go. That's probably why. Like you got some big ones that kind of hit over and can kind of skew it a little bit. Again, we talked about it. Some of these can kind of be over amplified a little bit. So whatever you see on these, you can kind of take off usually about 10 to 15% of what you see, just as an average rule of thumb. It's not perfect. If 50 happens, though, I'm not gonna strip and run down the street or something like that, but I will be very happy. I would be very, very happy. I would not deny it, and I'd be okay with not advertising that. But. A lot of these too. You take a look at a lot of these runs here. Show a pretty good stripe again. See that? Oh, pretty good cluster here. Pretty good cluster of models. It seems like that. And there's some other ones kind of skewing it. There's not really too many big ones. So pretty good clusters here. One thing I will say is the AI seems to be converging a little bit more like Philly to New York City with that first part of the band versus DC. And maybe in theory, I think it could extend down to them a little bit more. But yeah, you can see that there's a good cluster even here to an extent. It's a good cluster of models that have from DC Baltimore up to the North Shore and southern New England, showing some pretty good solid accumulating snowfall here. This is 10 to 1, and some of these ratios will not be 10 to 1. Even here, there's another pretty solid cluster, and this one is kind of dismiss some of those totals there, but you take that, it's showing. You're gonna be careful the exact totals, but here to an extent. And this one's close, but I'm talking like from North Shore, including New York City, including DC. That's kind of the strip I'm going for. So that one's close, but you can kind of get the idea. Is well, there's this one is kind of almost, but you can kind of see there's a pretty decent cluster here on not so overly amplified. Obviously, you want to keep some of these in mind here. Um, some of these kind of showing some coastal enhancement, obviously, or just a higher stripe of total sooner, but keep that in mind here. And then you also have ones where it shows nothing in some of these, and that is almost likely not going to happen. So that's how ensemble means can get kind of skewed as well. And then you have the ones in between, and that's where it ends up kind of being. But you can see there we're out of these 25, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 10 or 11 of these out of these 25 show a good cluster of pretty solid, and that gives you an idea of still a little bit the spread that goes on. This is not some massive revelation here. It's just taking note of how you look at some of these ensemble means, guys. You got to keep that in mind. So, and then another way we can do this, we can look at percentiles. So these 50% here, 75, and the 90s. Gives you an idea, and these are 10 to 1s, but this can kind of give you an idea then where some of those ceilings are. And I think this highlights it perfectly. Include Long Island, I guess, that area there. And that area there. And then if we do have a subsidence stone, this could be it. This could be it. This area could be on not terrible. Like, I think you would still find a way to at least get maybe an inch or an inch and a half. I could be wrong. Maybe it is less, but just because the front moving through, it allows still a widespread area along here. But that could be an area to watch. And then what you'll see is, though, some of those 10 percentiles, they'll show nothing. You'll see that? But it can kind of give you an idea for where maybe your highest margin for error is with this system. So, and there's at least your highest margin for error, so that if it is a little bit less, let's say, a lot of those areas along that corridor still get some decent snow. And these are 10 to 1. And probably slightly amped. So maybe it evens out, honestly. So with the Kachera. I don't know, we can see the Euro ensembles here, and it's not there. And it's not there, unfortunately. But pretty similar picture. And you'll see it probably, you may see it until the storm happens. But I'm telling you, this area here. And you might even get some out of here. Just from the direction of the front. But especially this area into here. In eastern New England. Basically Worcester eastward, east of Worcester. That's there's some coastal enhancement that I would bet on. And then this guy will come in at some point later the next week in whatever form that is. We'll see how kind of what shakes up here after this period this week. Whatever this looks at, whatever this turns into. Let's zoom out a little bit. We can take a look at some of these. All right, some of these zero AI runs in the long range can get a little lengthy here. The deterministic. And again, we're stuck. Weatherbell's got to address this stuff. You can't just be running behind every single website every time. It's frustratingly annoying. That's even a phrase. It's $30+ a month. We got to be better here. Come on. Ay. And then I will say, keep an eye on some variation of a polar vortex stretching event as well down the line here. I would keep an eye on that as well. Some variation where we still get opportunities for lobes of the PV to kind of get sent down here. And we kind of forecasted that all right. We kind of said it's probably going to be more of stretching event that continues to keep cold air on tap here. And I'm telling you guys, some will be like, oh great, it's fantastic, and others will be like, man, don't tell me about what could, these opportunities, I'm done. Just tell me when it's gonna snow, when. But we gotta discuss stuff that could happen to keep you in the loop, so at least I can go back and say, listen, at least I didn't keep you out of the loop with this. I gave you some hints to at least that shows what's possible. When you continue to set up the progression here, you continue to repeat stuff, eventually you can line up the pieces to get something to hit. Listen, this could be one of those winters where it is not a ton of massive snowstorms. It's not, you don't get a lot of 8 to 12, 12 to 18-inch snowstorms. Maybe this is not the winter where you get, 5 to 6 of those, so to say, if you live in southern New England or, eastern PA, New York City, whatever. In New York City, we almost never get that, but, or Hudson Valley, lower Hudson Valley, it may not be one of those winters, but it could be one of those where we might have some opportunities for a lot of light to moderate events, and then maybe there's a couple big ones. Maybe. Again, I'm not saying that's exactly how it's going to go out, but that's certainly possible, or at least over the next few weeks here. Maybe that's how it turns out. And then I have no idea yet as we head into mid-January and February. Or not no idea, but what I do know is we've set up the snowpack nicely here. And again, that's what I'm saying. People maybe don't want to hear, whatever. Too bad. My channel, my forecasting. Sorry to get angry. Take a look at the snow cover across North America. We've actually filled in quite nicely in Eurasia now. We're still probably very below average in some spots, but we've actually, over the past week here, especially southwest into Kazakhstan and into Western Russia. See that expansion there? So we have filled in okay here. After not that this was December snowpack is the deciding factor here, but it is something I monitor. Just more curious about to see the connection. Now, tracking this all the way since, remember what we were looking at in November there, October, how our snowpack was coming in. How's our cold air been coming in? Almost to a T. And so it can leave clues, some of that snowpack. And look at our snowpack as well. You have that Virginia, but that's that idea. So you continue to repeat your cold, want to filter in through these areas here and move over the snowpack in place already too. Something models can struggle with, especially in really any term, but it depending on what you're forecasting, but definitely in the medium and long range. So keep that in mind as we progress here, and you continue to keep that cold air on tap in an active north stream. At any point here, if you continue to keep that repetition going at any point over the next several weeks here, just time up one of these with the southern stream, and all of a sudden all your hopes and dreams could be coming alive in the darkest times of the night. I don't know, I'm not a Shakespeare guy, but you can just put the pieces together that. And so again, some don't want to be like, whatever, we could talk about anything. We could talk about could happens all day long, Brady. Why are you discussing this? Because I think it's relevant to people who want to know when could that bigger snowstorm happen. Maybe it's not maybe it's not some widespread 1 to 2 footer, but I think a lot of people after the past few winters, is there anybody in here that would be denying like an 8 to 14-inch snowstorm right now? I don't think so. Especially along 95, I don't think there's anybody. I think if you get one of those, you're set for the winter almost. You got a few more light events, you're set for the winter. Let's play that. Let's do that math game again. Oh, we can look at these too. Some of the anomalies. Can look at that in a second. I think it's interesting. But let's play Let's play here an example for I don't know, where do we want to pick? We'll go like Southwest Connecticut, New York City, we'll say. So this is why these events here, let's say you get 3 inches, 3.5 inches, let's just say, for example, you get on Sunday. And maybe you're a place that has a 1/2 inch already. So let's say you're up to 4 inches on total. All of a sudden now, you add in, let's say you add in a 9.5, we'll say 9.5 inch storm. Let's just say you get it by the end of December. All of a sudden now, or we'll say by first week of January, all of a sudden you're entering, after the first week of January, you're up to, let's say, maybe you add in another small event in there as well. So a couple small events, let's say you get to 14, if you're at 14.5, let's say, and you're living in, extreme lower Hudson Valley, New York City, Southwest Connecticut coastal, some of those places, and you're at that, I mean, you're set up for the rest of the winter. All you got to do is scrap about 5 to 10 inches, and you can call it a good winter. I mean, that's a simple, not. It wouldn't be above average, but it would be about an average. You can call it, compared to the last few. There you go. Scrap together some 3 to 5 events, some 1 to 3s, and boom. Now, good news for the interior is amazing start to the winter. Amazing start to the winter, in my opinion. In terms of continuous snowfalls, again, hasn't been some major snowstorm yet. There was a big one for the interior. A nice one, but it wasn't a major one. It was a 6 to 12er. So, it's a 6 to 12 with a couple of 13s, I guess, mixed in. It wasn't a massive, big one. Interior, though, these guys have been cooking. And obviously, here's done well, too. These guys are already set for the freaking winter. These guys here are set for the winter. It's house money for them now. They're done. They could be done for the winter, and they could call it technically a decent winter, I think, already, which is freaking amazing to think about for them. Fantastic, happy for them, because now we don't have to sit and hope these guys get a ton more now. Sorry if you do live there, but so these guys have been doing fantastic. Now it's about getting see what we can do for here. I'm sorry, DC. We can add you in. So obviously you can see it's not a strong La Nina, but we're still in La Nina. Weak La Nina still in place. We had borderline moderate La Nina. You can see that cold pocket of temperatures if you zoom in close enough there on your screen. But not the warm blob here over the Pacific. There's been your ridging. Now we're starting to have some systems kind of move through here in the North Pacific, but we've been warmer here in Alaska. We had along the coast here, you'll note positive P&A that we've been in. And then you'll note here the variations, warmer, some here in the Atlantic. So we've had some Atlantic ridging here, but not necessarily a ton up here. So you're still above average up here despite being a more positive NAO for the past couple weeks. And one thing I was curious about, I was looking through WeatherBell. Actually has a cool feature where you can look at sea surface temperature analysis for the past 25 years, and I'll pull it up in a second. This warm blob in Alaska, though, I cannot pinpoint any with a such widespread in a La Nina. I could not pinpoint. Could not. I could not pinpoint a perfect analog. And you know what was the closest one was? It was last winter. Last one, and in obviously it can kind of carry over a little bit, but this is a really freaking cool feature. I don't like how it did that. I guess I can I'll do this for the sake. I'll take away the pen tool for a second just for the sake of, but again, that's really hard. Why is it doing that? How do I? So there we go. But that's really small for you guys. I know it is. If I have to squint a little bit on my Mac, then I know it's going to be difficult for you guys. That doesn't work either, so that's clearly a problem. Oh, well, that's 2025, you can see. And then on the bottom, you can click on all these different ones. You can see 2024. See, that's kind of, that's a similarity there. But notice a little bit more, a little less cooler there over the just south of the Atlantic, the Western Atlantic. There you can see it's slightly warmer, but you can also see then across the Azores, a little bit warmer there as well. I can't have my pen tool zoomed in here. Sorry. Follow the cursor. But no, see, this was the closest one with that Australian blob there. But then you also have, this is a cold pool now, when this was a warm pool last winter at this exact time. And then you had the warm pool off South America this time with the cold pool last time. So this can get pretty interesting here. You can do some good research into the overall progression of winters a little bit. You can also lose yourself a little bit in the specifics of how general this can be when there's a lot of other driving factors, but this might be something I look into actually. See if we can get any, if we can find any good past research or case studies or some good AMS papers, related to some of this stuff here. I love digging into a lot of this stuff. It's amazing technology too, as you can just type into the internet now, provide me some stuff, on this, about this, and all of a sudden you can deep dive, and it's amazing how technology works. But you see, 2023 is not really quite the same. We were El Nino as well, but fun El Nino, not really. But 2022 at this time, stronger La Nina you can see there as well, with that Alaskan blob a little bit, but not quite the same. You see, you look at the bottom of the screen. A little bit similar, but not quite. There's some differences here in this. 2021, which was a good winter. I mean, we really kind of maximized some events there. We threaded the needle on some to take advantage. So there's a similarity. I guess there's a similarity with the Australian blob. A little bit different off South America, a little bit stronger of a La Nina at this point, I would say as well. See how much persistent, how farther that is. Hold up. Actually, some similarities there in the Atlantic, I would say. Not quite a full Tripoli effect, but some similarities. Alaska, though, a little bit different, I would say. But yeah, this this isn't that bad. This is actually probably one of the closest I found. This is a difference here. here off South America. Okay, so this is a pretty interesting. If you do have Weather Bell, you can kind of do this, and you can go and look at all the past winters if you do proceed to. But give some one last look here at some of these ensembles. Give a chance for these guys to recover. Hopefully, Weather Bell's figured it out at this point. In theory, the whole OZ suite should be out at this point. Yo, OZ run should be out. Let's put it to the test. You can see there, this AI ensemble does not get quite as warm as AIFS. Actually, never mind. It gets close to. Want to compare? Actually, it is. It's definitely different, but not quite the same. Let's see. So maybe a day we modulate, maybe one day we modulate temperatures, maybe next week it's possible. We'll look into the specifics of that. And then if you look at that, you got to follow your 8. Oh, we'll zoom back out here. You got to follow your 850 line, which is typically where you look around for your freezing line for like potential setups, actually. So, yeah. Would that be ideal for some of these areas? Not quite, but that's 222 hours out looking at the specifics of 1850 line. But let's look at the 500 millibar map. What does that look like on the other side? So we looked at that. A lot of people can caught looking at that. But you look at 500 millibar heights and you'd be like, oh my God, this is some massive torch here. And maybe it's not quite like what you think. What would intrigue me here is if you were to set up Atlantic ridging and have a positive load with the TPV overhead, you could allow some interesting things to develop here. Where you have cold air that gets funneled in and drives across, and you have an active subtropical or southeast ridge. That could get things interesting. And it would be so more for this area more, but what's the ceiling for New York City, you think? With Sunday, it's a little tricky, but there is a scenario where New York City could see at least 5 or 6 inches at least. There is a scenario there in theory. I say the ceiling is like 4 to 8, 5 to 8 New York City in theory. If you're locally lucky, then yes. What would I live? I would, but I would live more around the 1 to 3, 2 to 5 is where I would like to live for New York City right now. And I would not like to, necessarily buy into that. But yeah, how we doing? Ride the wave. So there's your 500, right? There's your 500 height map right there, right? You see that? There's your 500 height map. Your average. This is a mean. So you get caught. You look at this. People look at this. 318 hours out. They look at this. Okay. Well, look at the temperatures. Notice that. Now it's a mean. But you get my point. People do not know how to read 500 millibar heights. They don't. So yeah, it's just a disconnect. It's a disconnect at times. I wonder what the EPS looks like. I'm sure it's AIFS has been the ensemble has been ahead of the game from the EPS from the start of this winter. So it's been a little bit disappointing for the physics based ensembles this winter. Not that the AIFS has been perfect either, or the AIs have been perfect, but let's go to here. Yep, a little bit warmer. It's just been the case. It's just been the case all winter long, all fall long, I should say too. But again, this can kind of get smoothed out here. So see how smoothed out it gets at the end. So that's the problem. So it gets so smoothed out, the mean does, from so many range of scenarios that this is only so much helpful. You see how smoothed out this temperature line is? It will never be actually this smoothed out. It will never be. But you'll look at this and you'll go, oh my God, it's terrible. And it's just like, it's probably not as bad as you think. But that would be an interesting stretch there. Look at that. I mean, this feels like some sort of symbol of death here. I don't know what it is. Am I the only one that sees that? I mean, look at that. It's something. Light the beam or something. I don't know. Sketchy. Just fun. Yeah, let's see if we can see if now we can have some fun. Let's see if we can find any fun long range panel runs here like we like to do at the end. A little bit of fun for the people. Gets the people going. And it's stuck at 66 hours. Can we fix this? Please freaking fix this. I'm tired of it. Weatherbell, I'm tired of it. Please. Begging you. So annoying. So annoying. Yeah, the model is fully loaded out, and these panels cannot be even close. For Christ's sake. The snow totals are. Everywhere else, though, no. Any fun ones? Well, there's one. How about here? There we go. There are some fun ones. Give me 46 and 50, and we'll call it a day. How's that sound? That's how it works, right? That's again general recap. Let's keep an eye here. Monitor if there's things you want to model, follow on models. For those that maybe came in late, what do you want to look at? In terms of, you can follow on guidance, but what's generally going to happen as well? Well, one thing you can look at on guidance is how much does our Atlantic ridging build in? What's the stream separation look like? What's the amplification here of our height lines? More amplified these are, more snow there will be. What's our Pacific Ridge look like? Does it keep getting flatter and flatter and press on this more? Or do we work a little bit more vertically, allow this to sit in? We go to more 500. If you're someone who's going to look at models, I'm just giving you what to look at. What's our confluence look like? Is our confluence line a little bit higher, a little bit more amplified? Allowing these height lines to rise more? Allowing us to pull in more moisture earlier on? Does our PV lobes sit into our system towards the back more? giving more time for amplification, slowing it down a little bit more, or does it slide a little bit more to the east, pushes more on the confluence, limits amplification as much? So these are some things you can watch on guidance, and over the next couple days here, if you want to follow these runs, the changes and stuff. And the p-type maps may not always reflect cleanly what's actually happening, so keep that in mind. That's why I don't like them. Actually, they're fun to look at sometimes, but it's not always accurate. And then also keep an eye on how much subtropical moisture can we tap into initially. You can see how flat and pushed out some of this is. Big dome of high pressure here over the western U.S. And that's our system here as it slides in. A lot of us will follow the same foot tracks. Montana will get a pretty big, nice snowstorm here. Freaking awesome for them, right? Montana, who would have thought? Again, if you haven't liked the stream, please do it. If you're on YouTube, it does help a lot. I like to mention that at least once or twice a stream. Most YouTubers do it every like 15 minutes on a stream. I am not that smart. To self-promote, I get caught in the science too much. But let's keep an eye on that. Let's see how models do it there. Again, so it's the beginning stages of a frontal boundary here. Or it's a frontal boundary in the beginning stages, infant stages of cyclogenesis here. So the earlier you get a low pressure system to form here and help consolidate energy here along the front, the more precip you'll get pushed into that area, the better lift and dynamics you get pushed into that area. Another thing you can look at too is what does our jet streak look like here? A lot of those things we talked about. How soon, how much tilt, how much amplification here of this jet streak can we get? I want 250. How much amplification here can we get? That's what I'm looking at. How much can we get here? How strong can this jet core get? How much can we get these? Again, to amplify. If it's less, or if you see it working more this way, then you'll probably see less on the model run, or just in general, regardless. If we do end up getting this to amplify a little bit more, we see these tilt a little bit more further upward. That can allow more precip to build in. So that's just something to keep in mind, even though I think some of the general things of this system are kind of set in stone already. It is something to keep in mind here. There's some little things that can change here. We're still 2 to 3 days out, depending on where exactly you are, for the timeline. So keep that in mind for the system. And this applies regardless. I had someone ask me from Nova Scotia, yeah. Regardless if you're here, you're here. I mean, the same sentiment applies basically. The only case where it wouldn't be is if the confluence is higher with this system and the depth of the trough, it does not swing down as much and the confluence is higher. That will force that boundary a little bit farther north, and that may limit your potential in DC for some of those higher totals, and that would force that a little bit more in some of these areas. So that is something that's possible. And it's actually something I think close to AIFS is a little bit closer towards than other guidance. But so keep that in mind. But I do like, you see how the jet streak does continue to, as soon as you get that ascent, you get that push here, and this lift here from the subtropical jet here. You get this push here, and it helps expand the jet core here. So if you just time this a little bit earlier, you could extend your heavier snow period a little bit longer. So that's something to keep in mind too. It's really something that there's a small difference that could lead to some isolated bigger totals than you would expect. But yeah, that is the general idea. So again, hit that like if you haven't. I appreciate all the new likes, subscribes, whatever you want to call it, the fun stuff on YouTube. I appreciate it for helping me get be a partner and monetize. So I don't take that for granted. It's going to be pennies for right now, but it's a start. So I slow grind, TMC marathon continues. So appreciate you all. Until next.